Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. We are your hosts. My name is Saad.
And I'm Darris.
So, in our last podcast, we were talking about the productivity myth and how a lot of people perpetually think they're doing the busy work and the important work, but their business is in the same place that they started at.
Yep.
And one of the things that you mentioned in the last episode was the concept of delayed gratification.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of successful people out there, and if you just line them all up and like take out all of their attributes and see like what they're good at, delayed gratification is going to be like a circle across all of them. But there's other characteristics in there too
Yeah, absolutely.
that is kind of required to get to that level, like
Yep.
the Alex Hermosis, the
Andy
Andy
Frisella.
yeah,
Chris Williams.
Yeah.
I mean, we can go on Jeff Bezos.
yeah,
List
Yeah.
them out. And I think you nailed it. There's going to be, of all of those kind of like titans, of all those, really successful entrepreneurs who, they didn't come from generational wealth. Like they have come up in our lifetime.
yeah.
Like what are the common things the common characteristics of those guys or those
Yeah.
people that really stands out? And we can dive into those today.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to start off by talking about delayed gratification, and we briefly touched on it in the last episode.
Yeah.
And it is something that it's been kind of ingrained internally, but I never really vocalized it up until you brought it up in the last episode. Is because it's just how I was raised, right? Like it's just my dad came from a little bit of a military background, and in the military it's very, very strict, right? Like you can't just do whatever you want whenever you want. Everything has to be in proper order. Whenever somebody else comes by, like you got to salute. And that's, I'm going on a different tangent there, but like there's proper procedures and like discipline involved in it. And then at the end of it, you are promised to be a better individual,
Right.
so similarly in the business, if you're constantly going out on business dollars, buying yourself the nicest steaks, but your business is not growing, right? I'm trying to make a very like reasonable example across everybody.
Why are you attacking me?
Well, okay,
Bro
no.
chose violence today.
I didn't chose violence. I believe that like you're growing the business, right? Like you're
Yeah.
focusing on the bigger things. There's people that are constantly celebrating things that don't deserve celebration.
Yeah. So
And I'm not trying to take that away from people, but at the end of the day, like there has to be, you can't just celebrate every single thing.
okay. So I guess we'll start with one intention. What is the intention? So are you just happy doing your thing and like that lights you on fire? If that is you, we're not talking to you, right? Because that's not our intention. Our intention is to grow and scale much bigger than ever.
Yeah.
And so we're not talking to you, right? We're talking to the ones that want to grow and have to understand that what got us here isn't going to get us there. So we may have, like we said in the last podcast, is we may have learned as children how to delay some gratification. Some of us didn't. Or maybe over time, that ability to delay gratification eroded quite a lot to where we have a hard time. And I say this because I'm speaking to me, because just circumstances in my life, and I just learned different behaviors that weren't as healthy. And so it's been a process to unwind those behaviors to say, okay, well, if I say I want these things, does my behavior align with that, or am I just deluding myself? And most of the time I was just deluding myself and saying, oh, I love the idea of that I was working on important things. But as we talked about in the last episode, it was just busy work. It's the stuff that makes you feel good. It's I'm going to spend time working on my website, and I'm going to spend time developing my logo because it means so much, and it doesn't mean anything compared to the more important work of getting clients, making sure that you're delivering value for them and helping them and all that stuff.
Solving their problems
And making money,
Yeah.
right? So that you can do more of it and you can serve at a much larger scale. like that's the important work. Spending inordinate amount of time, like a stupid amount of time picking out your brand colors and your fonts. And I I see that because I did because, I listened to some quote unquote expert say, oh, yeah, you need to, like, this is the beginning process. This is really important. I was like, no, this is not the most
No.
important thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like that stuff, if you notice, like there's a lot of companies, like their brand, their logos have changed. They've just changed over time, or even their colors can change over time. It's like that stuff's not chiseled in stone. It wasn't handed to you on the top of a mountain, it's chiseled in stone by God. And
Yeah.
you walk down like, this is the word of the logo.
Yeah, exactly. This is what our company
Yeah.
needs.
Yeah. And
right?
it's
Yeah.
no, because that's at the end of the day, that's not the value.
Mhm.
Right? Yes, your brand can have value over time, but that takes time to build.
Mhm. Yeah, you need to deliver results before you start.
Right. So getting
adding some
away from the
visuals.
busy work and getting into the and so part of that is, going back to what we were just talking about, like delayed gratification, is there is so much thankless work that we have to do that we're just not comfortable doing. It's not even that fuck we're uncomfortable. We just don't want to do it because we have this feeling that's going to be uncomfortable. And so because it's going to be uncomfortable, we already are just like, oh, I don't want to do that because we just don't want to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And the only way you get more comfortable with uncomfortable is you put in the reps. Like this is one thing I absolutely love about Alex Hormozi and a lot of these guys is like, you just got to put in the reps.
Mhm.
And I remember like the when I first started to learn how to sell, like it sucked so bad.
Yeah.
I had a buddy of mine that he was in New York, I was in Texas, and every day at 6 a.m. we would just call each other and for an hour hammer the shit out of each other, like role playing back and forth and just trying to like hammer each other. And it was uncomfortable and it sucked. But then it was like we started putting the reps and suddenly it was like, oh wow, like that's how you get better at it. I'm sure you can think of a gym reference for this.
Absolutely.
Let's hit them. We cannot disappoint the people.
Well, it's the reps. You literally just said it. If you're weak at something, why? Like when you go to the gym and say like your biceps are lacking or your
Bicep. Let's stick with
it's like,
biceps.
yeah. Do you do more bicep related workouts or do you start doing tricep related workouts?
Triceps.
It's just
It's triceps for the back of the arms. It's biceps for the back of the arms.
Yeah, exactly.
But and so with that, so the bicep, you're doing a curl. But here's the thing, is if I know like, oh, like I'm going to start off, I'm weak, so I'm going to start with the 5 pound, and I start curling 5 pounds. Do you curl 5 pounds forever?
No,
It's
gradually grow.
you gradually increase the weight because that increases the uncomfortableness, which then gets you better and better. And we don't apply those same principles, and but we go into this where we're in a society where we're just so geared for instant gratification that there was a study we talked about before, but it's about the marshmallow. And you can look it up. You can Google it. It's a famous study. It's literally about you can just look up the marshmallow study. And it was really like they put kids in a room and said they had the marshmallow and said, okay, listen, do not eat the marshmallow. If you don't eat the marshmallow, I'm going to leave the room. But when I come back, if you don't eat the marshmallow, I'm going to give you another marshmallow. Yeah. And they studied the effect. And what they found was like, I believe the result was the kids that could not eat the marshmallow, like they had other things, they would distract themselves, they do all these other things so that they could get the longer term reward of 2 marshmallows. And there was a lot of kids that could not resist and they would just eat the marshmallow. They got instant gratification, right? And then I think over time was that those were the children that had harder time kind of like succeeding because they were always about instant gratification. Yeah. And so in that, I know I said it last time or we talked about it, but like just because you may have had a life where you are or have been very bad or not as great with instant gratification, delaying the gratification, doesn't mean you can't start now. Mm-hmm. Because that is the key. Like that is the real key behind one of the characteristics of the ultra successful in business entrepreneurs is that they are working on different time horizons. Mm-hmm. And I think it was a couple episodes back, we talked about, well, how do we then connect like those results to the now? And that's where like having a visual like readout or vision board, whatever, that connects, that pulls that future forward for you to help you make your decisions a lot more
aligned with it.
aligned and say, okay, is this actually moving me towards my goal, or am I delaying gratification, or am I just delaying an insane amount of regret?
Yeah.
So you pick your own adventure here, right? So do I want to delay the gratification because I know if I experience the hard time now, I will get that because that's the payout? Or am I really just not clear that if I continue on with what I currently want to do, I'm just delaying regret, and like I have a steaming bag of poop on fire on my doorstep arriving very soon.
Yeah. And, that's kind of where I was trying to start off the podcast episode with is like I might have grown up with it, and, it's something that might be second nature to me, but it's still nonetheless a skill. Like it's a skill that you can learn.
Yeah.
But you have to put in the reps to learn the skill.
And the only way you get better at it is by doing it. And so
Yeah.
you can start small. We talked about that, really simple example that is so instead of you want to watch a TV show, okay, great. Before you watch your TV show, what's the one thing you could do for an hour that's going to move you towards your goal? And the reward is that. And like, just try that for a week and start with that. Don't try to go, oh, I'm just going to not watch TV. Cool.
That's not how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, you might, right? Like you can take the batteries out of your remote control, go hide them somewhere, and create friction. Okay, that might be a good thing too, right? But then guess what? You'll just pick up your phone.
Yeah.
You will find something else to like replace that in the moment versus a true trade-off. It's like just give yourself the reward, but learn how to delay it a little bit more, and then you can start to build that in. So if you need help with that, just like start with something like that. Don't like the mindset around that is you're probably saying, well, I can't do that. Well, I mean, if you're telling yourself that, then you're right. Versus how could I do? What could I do? And that will be on the road for that.
Yeah.
What's the next characteristic of the ultra successful entrepreneurs you want to dive into?
I know attention.
Okay.
Yeah.
Attention and focus.
Yeah. Attention and focus.
I think that's an interesting one because it really dovetails perfectly with delayed gratification, right? So it's like they have an insane ability to put their attention on focus on something for a long period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. And like we've talked about attention being something that is very, very important in terms of like I don't know, I love
attention is the new oil, right?
Yeah.
So all of the apps, all the apps, everything is designed to capture everything is designed to capture your attention, right? Because that's what it wants. Because that if they can get you to consume that, right, then they can use that data. That's what they want. So attention, everything is grabbing your attention is the new oil, which is why everything is geared to grab your attention.
Yeah, and content is like designed to keep you there.
So there's content that's designed to help you. And there's content designed just to keep you fat and happy and placated, right? And just scrolling there forever.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's so easy. It's like
it's instantaneous.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Flick. Oh, got another one. Flick. Oh, more dopamine.
Exactly.
You got the thumb flick dopamine syndrome. Boop, 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 boop.
And every next one has to be better than the last one. Like so, you're constantly like searching for the next better one.
Right.
And So I know attention is one that's important for me too, and I'm trying to work on it a bit. And so we were talking about like in the last episode about how working as a consultant, you're constantly like moving from one thing to another for another client, and you're constantly in the busyness cycle. Attention plays a big role in that. So when you're constantly task switching, like we've talked about before, you're never having 100% attention on anything.
Yeah.
And what's the math behind it? Like it's like every 15 minutes before your brain like resets and like gets.
We get distracted. It's on average about every 11 minutes,
Yeah.
and it usually takes us about. And there's different numbers, but it's like 15 to 23 minutes to get refocused.
Yeah, exactly. And then imagine you got your 30-minute meetings. So while you're in the next meeting, you're trying to refocus on the new task at hand.
Yep.
But then you switch again. So you're never really attentive. So, one of the things that obviously like the Titans that we're talking about, they focus on the one thing, and they'll do that until it's done or
Yes.
until it's successful.
Yes, and we talked about the thing you have to be careful about is comparing where they are now and trying to emulate that, right?
Yeah.
So, oh well, I heard I can't remember what it was. And there's like, oh, people try to emulate, and they're emulating the now, which is like, they're really rich. They fly on a private jet so they can save time. I'm like, well, if you don't have the money to fly private, you probably shouldn't be flying private. Like that's the wrong thing to focus on.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're distilling kind of like, here's the actual characteristics that allow them to get there. It's like you got to be careful of what you're trying to emulate and what message you're taking away from that. And it's okay. We're talking about attention and focus. Yes, they are able to. They focus on the one big thing because they are focused on all their attention is creating leverage, right? So the attention is what's the goal? Because we talk about the vision board, like what am I ultimately trying to achieve with all these things? So with that is, okay, my attention is going to be on creating leverage. And then attention and focus go together because attention is what you're putting all your energy into. And then the focus is that narrowing of the energy. So it's your ability to say no to a lot of things and remove all the options around that. Because that's the only way you get to one thing is you have to say no to everything else. But we're so used to saying yes and adding on everything that we wonder why we become so distracted and just so busy all the time. Is because we're saying yes to everything. Whereas we need to develop the ability to say no because the quality of the things we're saying yes to is so high. And that's the mental gymnastics around that. And with that, so the more things we say no to, again, for a season allows us to bring that focus, right? I focus all that energy onto achieving that and creating more leverage because that will get us there.
Yeah.
Depending where you are in the game, that might mean that you need to have that time before your kind of work day starts because you're either working as an employee, moving your business into full time, or you are basically managing a lot of people during the day as a business owner. And so you don't have, like right now, you don't have that capacity during that time, but you're going to build it in. But you do that by starting, okay, well, maybe 4 to 6 a.m. That's my prime time flow time where I can schedule that block and I'm going to work on creating leverage.
Yeah.
Right. And know that those things are actually going to then flip where you'll be spending most of your day at one point, spending a lot of your attention and focus on creating leverage because you'll now be leveraging other people to help perform at levels that are so far beyond what you're actually used to. And they'll create so much more energy, revenue, and all those things.
Yeah. You kind of touched on the third one that I was going to bring up, not necessarily in that order, but it was going to be time management, aka leverage.
Yeah.
Like understanding
time. Yeah. Time management is that one where we think of time, and I hate talking about time management because I think as soon as we say time management, we've all been through some type of really stupid time management thing. And it's really around prioritization. Because we're all given the same amount of time. It's just how we prioritize the use of that time and what's most important.
Yeah.
And if we prioritize just having a manager schedule where we're trying to just knock off as many little things as possible, that's great. But we're not prioritizing our time to achieve the more important things. Like, to me, it's a prioritization challenge, not a time challenge.
Yeah.
Because we always make time for the things that are important to us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you obviously leverage the most high value tasks to or utilize like leverage skill to get the most high value tasks done in the shortest time possible.
Yeah, and that's a function of, we talk about leverage, like that's why we always continue to talk about flow state. Flow state is one of the most powerful leverage forms of leverage you can use. Is because you can achieve so much more. You'll be that much more creative. You'll condense more time frames because of it. And you only get into flow when you are ultra focused, because flow follows focus. You don't get into flow without an insane amount of focus. And we get into focus by having really clear goals, which is saying no to a lot of things to zone in on the one thing we need to do.
Yeah.
Right. And then we get into that where time, we experience time different because we're now outputting so much more. We're so much more like the parts of our brain are shut down and we're just all of our energy now being channeled into that. We
Yeah.
get so much more done.
Yeah. And then again, like flow. So what I'm trying to say is that like delayed gratification is a byproduct of flow. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, because we're deploying flow,
yeah,
and the idea is if we can if we can learn to deploy flow
hmm,
regularly, more effectively, in longer periods, we're essentially going to pull.
yeah.
I heard this the other day. I'm giving credit. I'm going to give. I give credit where it's due. Alex Hormozy. We're going to grab the future by the balls
Yeah,
and you're going to drag it into the present.
yeah,
And that's the whole idea. Is what that's
yeah,
what we're trying to do. When we say we're collapsing time frames, we're reaching into the future. We're grabbing it by the balls and we're ripping it down into the future. Saying, okay, but that's why we leverage flow. That's why at the end of this, like all of these things, like the real common denominator for all of these things is learning the skill of flow, because the skill of flow, you have to learn discipline. You have to learn how to master your attention and your focus, because the only way you get into that is by being really focused, right? Because flow follows focus. The only way you get that is you say no to a lot of things, right? Because you become very clear, and then you're managing time differently because your perception of time changes, and because you're doing that, like you're achieving more. Yes, you'll get some gratification in that
and the
you've
doing of
achieved
it.
a
Yeah,
lot,
yeah,
but it's achieved a lot in the most important things,
yeah,
like creating more leverage to extract as much money per hour, right, to drive your business forward. And is it all, rainbows and unicorns and sugar plum fairies and what I don't.
yeah.
No, it's not, because
Yeah.
like flow also has the recovery side. Like it is an extremely intense experience to go through. You burn a lot of neurochemicals. You don't just run on those forever,
Yeah.
but you're much more capable than you are. And that's the key, is that you have to get to the point where you're actually experiencing that. And then we develop that skill and we grow that skill, but you have to get in the reps.
Yeah.
The only way you get good at this, at any of these things, is you have to get the reps in, and just doing it here or there. Like it's volume negates skill,
Mhm.
right? So like and then because you do the volume is you gain the skill.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you summarized that perfectly, how all of that ties in. And flow is like the leverage tool that utilizes your skill of attention, delayed gratification,
Yeah.
leverage, and
That's how we
yeah.
leverage flow
Mhm.
to achieve those. Because you can leverage flow to not achieve that and go in a completely different way of life. Could you spend all your day in flow playing video games and not achieving anything? Absolutely.
Mhm.
1,000,000% you could. You could do that. We're not talking to you. You're in your mom's basement
Yeah.
still. You were the butt of many, many jokes. That's not what we are saying. Is like that's a cornerstone for all of that to happen, because
Yeah.
that is a fundamental skill that accentuates all of those ones, right? Because you have to, because the whole point of leveraging flow the way we do is we're actually looking at the future. We're aligning to that, what that future goal is, and we're pulling it into the present much faster
Mhm.
by doing that. And as a result, we build all of those other skill sets. But you have to start somewhere. If you've never done it, like you have to start somewhere.
Mhm.
And if you've always been chronically busy and never actually doing the important work, well, then it's going to seem hard. It's going to seem like it's impossible until we get you to the point where you can do one flow block.
Yeah.
And then the idea of doing one full day completely into flow, where you've achieved more in that day than you've done all month, is going to seem so far beyond your comprehension, because you don't see the bridge of that transformation happening, because all you've experienced is a day where you are just perpetually busy and you want to throw in the towel at the end of the day because you're like, I can't do day after day after day this shit because you can't see an end to it.
Yeah.
And there's no gratification at the end of it. There's no like, what am I getting? Because what I feel like is every day I do this, I'm not getting any closer to my goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so for anybody that looks up to these people and, wants to end up becoming like them, these are the skills that you need to focus on.
Yes. This is the skill that actually will get you there.
Yeah.
So if your goal is to scale your business, do that. Like you want the best form of leverage to do that. It's mastering flow state.
Yeah.
It's mastering the art of the 1 month day.
Yeah.
It's first, like we have to peel back some of that cognitive load. You have to strip back the things that are not helping you and they're keeping you busy and not able to develop those other skills. Because you can't even fathom that that's possible.
Yeah.
We start there. We're going to peel that back a bit, get you the horsepower back, and then leverage you to where you're able to actually experience flow regularly. And then suddenly, like you could be a Hormozy that is now saying, hey, the first 100 days of my year, I've outworked everybody because I'm working 12 to 16 hours a day. I'm highly flow because I am not distracted. I'm zero lasered in. Again, if that's not the life you want, that's okay. We're not saying you have to do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You don't have to do it like that. Yeah. But do not be envious of his results if you're not willing to do that type of work.
Yeah. And
right?
Back to the bicep example, like you don't go from 5 to 50. You do 5, 10, 15, 20 over a period of time. As you start growing.
And if you're not willing to progress yourself where you're able to lift a 50, don't be envious of the dude has put in the time and effort to get his results because he can.
Yeah.
Right? Like check yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
Like don't. Yeah. I'm not going to say that. Don't be that bitch.
Exactly. I think it's a great place to call it.
Okay, so there you have it. So those are the common characteristics of the ultra successful entrepreneurs in our day and time. Is like those are some of the ones, and how that kind of all ties together. It's like if you really want to be able to move like them and be successful like them, we've just given you kind of like here's a breakdown of those characteristics, but here's the common thing that ties all of those together. And if you will start there, like that's a starting place, and then you will acquire the skills so much faster. And pull that future into the present much faster.
Exactly.
All right. So we are BizMeds. I'm Darris.
My name is Saad.
And we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being with us today on today's episode. And if you've just joined us, we thank you so much. And if you've been with us since the beginning, thank you again. We can't appreciate you enough. As the Andy Frisella says, don't be a hoe, share this show. And to our mothers, our parents, thank you. We love you, Mom. Love you. Thank you. Saad's mom. We love you. Thank you. Remember, always, you're just one day away from the life you've always dreamed about. We will see you in the next show.